Welcome, I'm Paul, this is Dave. Today I have 16 Glitch in the Matrix and paranormal stories for you. Let's get to it. Case file number 3056, written by Corvette. Running in circles, falling through worlds. So this happened when I went to my late friend's house for the first time. Cancer took her. It was an apartment complex, so it had stairs on both ends of the floors, like interconnected on each floor. I hope you all get it. Remember this for later. We were like 9 or 10 years old, and it was her birthday, and so Mai and her parents were chit-chatting, and she said, "Want to do something cool?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, what is it?" And she takes me out at her house door, and she tells me that if you go on one end of the stairs, since there were two, go down one floor, then from that floor you run to the other end and again climb up the stairs, you'll be on the same floor as you are. So basically a loop. But as we were small and dumb, I felt it was some sort of magic, and we literally ran in loops for like 6 or 7 times, and then we came back. Now, after a while, her mom sent her to get something from the grocery store, and she just dashed away, and I was like, "I want to join you too," but my mom said, "No, don't go." But still, I ran to her, but I missed her, she was already gone. So then, stupid me thought, why not do the loop thing again? I was alone this time. Now this is where the weird thing happened. I ran down a floor, ran to the other end, and now I ran up a floor. So I should be on the floor where my friend's apartment was. But no, I was on a completely different floor. It was all dim, yes, the whole floor was dark. Very little light. And let me tell you, it was a sunny noon that day. So now I was scared because I was not familiar with that place. I was alone, and it was dark. I stood there for like 5 minutes, confused and scared. But then I thought I should get help. So there was an apartment. I knocked on the door. No one answered. I knocked a second time. Still no answers. So I thought, let's go down the stairs of the other end as usual. Maybe I'll just reach there. But no, I was getting more lost. So I went back to the empty dark floor, and I was scared to my core. Then I don't know what clicked in my mind. I thought, let's just reverse my steps. And I just went to the stairs I came from and somehow ended up to the floor where my friend's apartment was, on the verge to cry, and straight up ran to my mom. And the ride back home was silent. Still to this day, I don't know where did that floor come from. How come no one was there? And to be honest, it was unreal, and I remember this very vividly. Never shared this with anyone, but those stairs were not normal. So the whole Penrose stairs kind of thing is interesting. The geometry we perceive in 3 dimensions, well 4 if you include time, probably not the entire gamut of all dimensions in the universe. Now we're not even talking about multiverse events here, we're just talking about different dimensions, but if you factor in the multiverse too, well maybe these higher dimensions, it's almost like those fish, where if you're in a pond, some people experiment with fish where they have a elevated platform that is filled with water that fish can swim up into, and then they can see into a different world that they have absolutely no prior perception of, or they can't even conceive of it. And so maybe we sometimes get glimpses of it, like maybe aliens are giving us this opportunity like we give to fish, where we are just, in other ways, completely limited to an extent that where we can't even process a limitation. It's like if you're cheating on a test, or someone gives you the answer, but even with the answer, you can't comprehend it. I hope we're not that limited, but it's possible. This whole dimensional stuff, our perception, our brains simply aren't wired for it. Case file number 3057, written by Mr. Massachusetts, The Presence of Absence. I took a small fishing trip this weekend with 4 lifelong friends, all of us in our 50s. We stayed at my boss's house, somewhere I've stayed many times before, and it was just us. We spent most of the time eating, drinking, fishing, and playing poker. Early on the first night, I kept feeling that someone was missing. I couldn't put my finger on it. It wasn't as though a specific person was supposed to be there and wasn't. It felt more as if someone was there but somehow absent. The feeling came on randomly. I'd be sitting there, looking around my friends and counting, always just the 5 of us. By the second night, the sense that someone was missing became overwhelming. I finally mentioned it to the group. One friend turned white and said, I can't believe you just said that. I've had the same feeling all weekend. Another admitted he had been counting heads more than once because he felt someone wasn't there at certain times. The other two didn't feel it at first, but as we talked, one of them began noticing the same strange, missing friend sensation. The fifth friend said he never experienced it. None of us are especially religious or inclined toward the paranormal, but we wondered if it might be the spirit of a friend who passed away a few years ago, though that seemed unlikely, since he never liked fishing. We also considered that it could be one of our fathers, since all of our dads have died. Mostly we were just trying to make sense of it. I don't believe in an afterlife, so I brought up the simulation theory and suggested, half-jokingly, that the system had temporarily removed one of our close friends for some reason. My friends thought that idea was worse than ghosts. I've had this feeling before too. Just in a sense of having a sibling that I don't have. Maybe it is related to the multiverse in that if you're in a universe where something is different than the average version of yourself across all universes, you may get a sense that something is missing. And it might just be that in this particular universe, your group of friends, they all are averaging into a lower end of the bell curve, where this reality is unusual because usually there is a sixth friend in the group, but here there just isn't. And you all get that sense, because maybe we are all, to some extent, connected to all their copies of ourselves in all the other universes, almost like quantum entanglement, but across the multiverse. I like that theory. Pure speculation as always, but I like it. Case file number 3058, written by Human Issue 3652. The Road of Colors. My sister and I were driving behind a pickup truck on a 2-lane road. I remember thinking it looked like Trevor's truck from GTA 5. Random habit, he's my favorite character. The truck came to a slow down to turn left, blinker on, and about halfway through, there was what sounded like a giant explosion. We thought a tire must have popped. My car got hit by some debris, so we pulled over to wait for the cops. While waiting, my sister observed the scene and said she thought it was a hit and run because the red truck was nowhere to be seen. Cops came to our car eventually and told us the truck had hit a motorcycle. This part also confuses me because I'm a pretty attentive driver and never heard or saw a motorcycle until the crash, but I can accept that maybe I just missed it. The really confusing part is when my sister curiously asked the cop if the driver of the truck was still here, and he said yes, and pointed to a navy blue pickup truck. Same exact model, just blue. Both me and my sister were pretty confused, but we just gave our statement and moved on. I think the clue is the motorcycle. I don't think you just missed it. It just wasn't there until you transitioned universes. Maybe you both got into a crash as well, and were ported over to a new universe. One where the truck ahead was blue instead of red. Unsurprising to no one, quantum immortality is probably my favorite glitch, so to say. Glitch in air quotes. Case file number 3059, written by NarrowAd345. The Lemon Sanitizer Paradox. Earlier today, my friend picked me up for a day out with our kids. We went out for ice cream and took our kids to the park. I have a Bath & Body Works hand sanitizer attached to my purse. It's in one of the holders and attached with a hook type thing. If you are familiar with the little Bath & Body Works sanitizers, you might know what I'm talking about. The one I have is lemon scented and it's a lotion base to help moisturize. Before we left the park, I shared my sanitizer with my friend and she made a comment about it, saying she had never seen a lotion type sanitizer before and she really liked the smell of it. We then left the park and packed up in our car for her to take us home. I should add that I sat in the back with the kids. She was in the passenger seat and her boyfriend was driving. When she got home, after dropping us off, she messaged me saying my sanitizer fell out of the holder and onto her seat. She sent me a picture of her holding it, saying she'll give it back to me. I informed her she could keep it because I have 4 other refills. I went to my closet to grab a new one, all of which are different scents. I like to buy all different scents when I go shopping for these. I grabbed a new one, walked to my purse, went to replace it and noticed the lemon one my friend claimed fell out in her car was still there. So of course I told her I still have it, and we both got weirded out. She swears no one else in her car would have had it, and it definitely wasn't there before I was. And I swear I only had one. I didn't bring a second one, and like I said, I always get all different scents, so that lemon one was the only one I had. She even said that the one she found wasn't new, it was used. We are convinced there was a glitch in a parallel universe or something. Case file number 3060, written by C. Ganache, 6943. The sunglasses without an owner. My family and I were at a Renaissance festival a few weeks ago. We stepped into a shop. My husband and son were walking a few steps ahead of my daughter and I. There was a long table with merchandise that my daughter and I stopped to look at. 2 other women were looking at the things on the table too. My husband and son kept walking to the other end of the shop. As my daughter and I looked at the items on the table, something clattered to the floor behind and to the right of me. I thought one of the ladies dropped something and went to pick it up. It was a pair of sunglasses, and they looked like my husband's. I scooped them up and called out to my husband that he dropped his sunglasses. He turns around and is wearing his sunglasses. Shocked, I asked the ladies next to me if they were theirs. They said no. My husband walked over and examined them. They were almost, but not quite, identical to his Oakley sunglasses. The arm was slightly thinner. An employee took them outside the shop to see if anyone out there had dropped them. No one claimed them. No one else was around when they fell, though. It was as if they dropped out of thin air. It was really unsettling. We joked that my husband, in another universe, is mystified as to where his sunglasses disappeared to. I had suggested to try the sunglasses on to see if they were the same prescription, but an employee had already put them away somewhere. Honestly, I think you got it nailed perfectly. The copy of your husband in a different universe lost their sunglasses and they were ported over here. When a DOP event is not buffered by a return event, it's probably that the item was just coded into the wrong universe accidentally. And that also explains why they're slightly different. They probably would be. And I was also thinking about the Voynich manuscript in relation to items that are appearing from different universes. Well, this, if you don't know, it's a book filled with designs of plants and animals and a language that doesn't exist in our history as far as we know. The curious thing is, you might say, it's just a prank from, hundreds of years ago where people were just making fun, People will find this and think, whoa, is this aliens or something? No, the language has all the structure of a real language. The proper grammar, syntax, repeating words like the and stuff like that, things that you would find commonly in a language. So if it was fake, it's almost like they had to recruit Tolkien to invent a new language in proper grammar and syntax and everything where the rules make sense. And not to mention all the drawings and designs of it. It's a hell of a prank if it was, but I think it's just a manuscript from a different universe. A very distant one, probably. Case file number 3061, written by Chicken Soup Juice. Short hair, cigarettes, and forever watching. As a kid, I had a lot of dreams that would come true and weird encounters. I still do, but not nearly as frequently or as intense. I ended up with a deck of tarot cards at about 9 years old. I still use the exact ones, but I have never formally memorized meanings or specific rules or anything. I just go off intuition, basically. There have been many things I have experienced since then that have led me to believe in them. Like this. I was invited to a sleepover at about 12. I had just entered middle school and made friends with a girl. She came from a different elementary school, and so did her friends. I only knew her at the party, and that was still pretty fresh. Once we settled into the host room for the night, I started to read this girl's cards. I immediately got the idea that someone in her life was deceased. I was describing the woman I imagined as not her mother, not her aunt, and almost in between those. Not related to her, but very important, like a guardian. Everyone in the room reacted with shock, but no one would say anything. What made this different from other experiences is that I began to feel my entire body fill with a warmth. It felt like someone was hugging me. I almost wanted to cry and had goosebumps. It scared the crap out of me. In this moment, I also developed a clear mental image of the person who I could describe down to the short, blonde haircut, cigarette smell, etc. I could almost smell perfume and cigarettes. I just felt this glowing energy, like I was being taken over. I had such a clear mental image of this woman, but the sensations were completely new to me and scary. I passed the message on to the girl that she was very loved and being watched over. The girls told me immediately that everything I described was accurate, as they all grew together. The girl's mother had a long-time girlfriend who had recently passed. It turned out her mother was a local psychic, and she wanted to meet me the next morning, and she didn't seem upset about the encounter at all. Case File 3062, written by CG-HJ, The Remote That Mocked Me. I sat down on a couch to watch the final episode of Terminator Sarah Connor Chronicles, and when the show was done, I reached for the remote to turn the television off, and it was gone. I had not gotten up from the couch during the show or done anything else, so the remote theoretically should have been within arm's reach. I cleaned everything. I looked everywhere, places they couldn't possibly be. The entire living room, under cushions, on the couch, everywhere, methodically. 6 months later, after I had already bought a replacement remote, at a party and my house was packed, seriously packed to the top with drunks and people having a great time. Seriously, it was a memorable party for everyone involved. The next morning, I stumbled into the living room, rubbing my eyes, and the remote was placed perfectly, like not just casually dropped, placed perfectly parallel, on the arm of my couch. The most frustrating thing for me is I will never know where it was found. But I can guarantee you that it was found somewhere I had already looked. What the fluck? Case File 3063, written by designer Broccoli 210. A shadow wearing my hair. A couple months ago, I was at my boyfriend's house hanging out, and I took his dog out to potty like I usually do when I'm there. For context, in his backyard, there is a barrier of trees between his yard and the neighbor's yard. I'm watching his dog wander around, and at the tree line, I see a woman. She was standing on my boyfriend's side of the trees, looking down like she was looking at something on the ground. I turned back to the door to tell my boyfriend, who was coming outside shortly after me, about it, but when I looked back, she was gone. My boyfriend said sometimes a neighbor will come into the yard, perhaps to get something that went through the trees or whatever. It doesn't happen often, but it does happen. I thought it was strange, but I haven't thought about it since then. Fast forward to yesterday. I'm hanging out at my boyfriend's house again, and we go outside to walk around in the yard. As we're walking around, my boyfriend stops to look at something on his phone, and I keep going, walking towards the same spot I saw the woman. I was looking down at the ground as I was walking, but then I turned to look towards the house, and I saw someone at the back basement door. For a second, I figured it was one of his parents, but then I realized it was me. I saw myself looking at me, then turning back towards the door. I saw myself repeating everything I did that day, the day I saw the woman. It freaked me out so bad that I got a headache and I had to take a nap to calm down. Another detail of the story is when I saw myself the first time, this was a couple months ago, I couldn't make out a face because she had long brown hair that covered it while she was looking down. No one else in the house has long hair except for me, and I had just taken my hair down when we went outside. I feel like I'm losing my mind. I will say that I do sometimes have auditory hallucinations, but I've never had visualizations, and I'm on medication for it. It honestly could be a visual hallucination, but to be in the same scenario twice is a miraculous coincidence. I don't know what happened. I just saw myself. I just need to know that I'm not crazy. It's an interconnected time anomaly. In that particular area, the geography of space-time was contorted, so you could see generally into the future, which is harder to do, but seeing into the past, that's easy. And you were seeing ahead into a probable future. Now this was months ahead, so if you had to examine exactly what the you in that future that you saw versus the real you did, there probably would be minute differences, because I don't believe you can predict the future, especially months out, with perfect accuracy. There's multiple different versions, and that's why we have a multiverse. Every possible thing that can happen does happen, just not all in the same universe. You saw a probable future, and then when you reach that point, you were still connected in space-time, mainly the time part, back to the past just to see, yourself doing the same thing that you were doing back then. It would be trippy as hell, and I kind of want to experience it too, but yeah. Pretty simple physical explanation. Case file number 3064, written by Paza, Parallel Lunch Break. I was at work between 1 and 2 p.m. when my mom texted me saying she was going to have lunch with my sister. We chatted for a bit until she stopped replying. Later that afternoon, when I got home, she told me the weirdest thing. She said she was in her bedroom. For context, our apartment is laid out like this. When you enter, there's a living room and dining room, then a hallway with the kitchen, my bedroom, my sister's empty bedroom, and finally, my mom's bedroom at the end. From her room, you can only see the hallway. While in her room, she clearly heard my sister come in, the front door opening, keys jingling, the sound of her purse and jacket being dropped on the chair. Even the cats that were sleeping on my mom's bed woke up and ran to greet her, like they do every day. But no one ever walked down the hallway. My mom got up to greet her, but there was no one there. Later, my sister told us that around noon, she had texted my mom about having lunch together. She left her phone on the bed while she went to shower and get ready, but when she came out, her phone was gone. She tore the whole place apart, looking for it, moved the bed, stripped the sheets, and checked every corner. She even used Find My iPhone, but it only showed that it was somewhere in her apartment. She got so frustrated that she ended up calling her boyfriend on Discord from her PC to ask if maybe he had accidentally taken it, but he hadn't. After about an hour of searching and crying, she checked her room one more time and there it was. The phone was lying right in the middle of the bed, completely in plain sight, as if it had been there the whole time. This freaked me out so much that I joked, maybe the parallel universe version of my sister didn't lose her phone, managed to leave on time, and actually came home for lunch. Case file number 3065, written by PTSD Dreamer 333, 32-64, The Upgrade from Nowhere. So, I've had a ton of this stuff happen over the years. Usually keys, remotes, kitchen gadgets, things I use often, and they all have a place. It's so frustrating. This one, though, was really weird. I'd bought a 5-pack of 32GB flash drives several months before, each one a different color. I placed them on my bookshelf and used one that I tucked away in my computer case. Well, about 8 months came and went, and I needed another one. I had just seen the box a couple of days ago, and when I went to grab one, the box was gone. I did a deep search and they were just gone. Nowhere in the house. I was so frustrated. Then about 1 month later, I was dusting and right there on the shelf was a box of flash drives. Except this box had all 5 in it. They were 64GB, not 32, and just a little different in shape. I grabbed it and ran to my computer case, and the one I had used was still there. You know what would be interesting is if those flash drives didn't work because they were from a different universe, and the architecture of circuit boards and processing nodes and everything might be just so ever so slightly different between universes that they aren't compatible. Even the smallest change can lead to corruption in processing. So maybe not so much with a flash drive, but if you received a different version of a CPU, even a tiny, minute change in a tiny quadrant could make it unworkable. Case file number 3066, written by Unusual Luck 5686, When Order Summoned It Back. So, myself, 20 male, couldn't find my TV remote. I live in the basement and my parents live upstairs. Irritated, I search everywhere for my remote. It cannot be found. Getting a bit pissed off, I ask them if they saw it. They look at me like I'm an idiot. Of course they haven't seen it, and don't care about it. I go back down to my room and tear it apart. The elusive remote can't be found. I'm very particular, so I clean my room, like super cleaned. Vacuum, dusting, carpet deodorizer, the whole 9. No remote. But My room is immaculate, and for that I feel less pissed about the remote. Several hours have passed, and I go back upstairs and announce, I guess it's just gone, silently questioning what the fluck happened to it. They still barely acknowledge my plight. I go back downstairs to enjoy the state of order my room is in, and as soon as I walk in the room, it's sitting in the middle of the floor. Mind you, I had just vacuumed and did everything, and there's no way in hell it just sat there without being noticed. I'm 40 now. This still blows my mind. How? Today's the day of DOP stories, that's for sure. I do like having a whole jumble just thrown at you. Because they never get old, at least to me they don't. Just hearing about things going missing and coming back. It's not going missing is one thing, which has happened to me. But coming back just doesn't happen to me. And to read all these stories where it comes back, but in the most obvious spot. Like, it's almost intentional, right? It's just to mess with your damn mind. It's the universe gaslighting you. It's like, oh, you look there? I'll place it right back in the middle of where you know you just looked. Or you just vacuumed, or whatever. It's impossible. And there's something is just trying to mess with your brain while returning the corrupted file. Case file number 3067, written by Ambiani, White Lace and Forgotten Magic. This happened around 15 years ago in my childhood home. I was about 20 and had been to a Halloween party dressed as Corpse Bride. I had bought a decorative white lace umbrella as a prop from a charity shop to match my costume. Many alcoholic drinks later at the party, and the white lace umbrella had been passed around, messed with, dropped, used as a play weapon. Taking it home with me at the end of the night, and I remember looking at it, battered and bedraggled, muddied, torn, spokes bent out of shape. When I got in, my mom looked at me, noticed the umbrella, and said, "Oh no, what happened to it?" I mumbled something about my friends accidentally breaking it, and that was that. The next day, after washing my costume and doing my best to fix the umbrella spokes, but failing, I took them upstairs to the fancy dress box in the loft. Being unable to just throw anything away, I hoped a costume in the future might call for a broken, muddied, torn umbrella. A couple months later, Mom and I were in the loft looking for Christmas decorations. She was the first to spot the umbrella. I heard her say, "Is this the umbrella you took to that party?" I looked and she was holding it. It was in pristine condition. It was pure white lace, unbent, clean, just as I'd bought it. We both looked at each other in absolute disbelief. It made no sense. The thing was practically destroyed at the party. We both knew it, yet here it was, as though nothing at all had ever happened to it. Case file number 3068, written by Grassy Branch Girl. My poltergeist has good taste. For background context, I had lost an earring last year in the summer. I knew where I dropped it, at the foot of my bed, and I crawled around on the floor in that area hunting it. This wasn't a small earring. It was a long bar shape. I couldn't find it anywhere. Just poof, it's gone. Fast forward to November of last year. I arrived home from work and went upstairs to change. I opened the bedroom door, and right in the center of the floor in front of the door is my earring. It was at least 6 feet from where I dropped it, and I walked over that same area every day for months. So, for Friday's experience, I arrived home after work not feeling well. I took my jewelry off and dropped a ring on the floor. I knew where it fell, and I even felt it under my big toe on the floor when I crawled in bed. I told myself I'd pick it up after I laid down for a bit. I started to feel better and got up later. I knew I needed to find my ring, so I got down on my hands and knees where it should have been. I felt all around the area. I couldn't find it at all. I immediately thought of the earring. I lifted my head, looked at my bedside table, and there was the ring, staring me in the face. I did not pick it up and put it there. I'm positive that it was on the floor. Then I remembered the bedroom door wasn't closed all the way when I was lying down. As I was in bed, the door started to move and opened all the way. No drafts, no other doors open or close that could make the door move. I said, "Hey," to whatever opened the door, and kept laying there till I felt better. I think whoever brought my earring to me came and picked up my ring too. At least my spirit is tidy. Case file number 3069, written by Dear Papaya 192. a nightmare you can wake up in. While staying at a small house for a week or so while looking for an apartment, my family and I became convinced it was haunted. We saw green lightning coming down on top of a nearby hill one night in an area with a pretty large population, yet no one we've asked had seen it, and no weather reports we could find were made about such a weird weather pattern for the area. One of the last nights we were there became a pretty solid example of why I believe in ghosts. There was a small door built into the living room wall next to the fireplace that led to nothing. Just a small door about 1.5 feet tall, 1 foot wide, and just over a foot deep into the wall. We've always got a weird feeling about it, and noticed when it was open, you could only see a few inches inside, almost like the shadows inside made it seem like it went on much further than it did. I can remember a single time I opened it to see if I could figure out the point of it. I slept in the living room with 2 of my siblings, and one of those nights I had a nightmare about being chased, caught, and dragged. Details about the dream are fuzzy, but I remember feeling hands on my ankles, pulling me back vividly. I woke up from the nightmare at least 5 feet away from where I fell asleep, with that door open, and both my legs inside, to the point where my toes would touch inside the wall, if I barely stretched them. None of my siblings could have managed to move me into that small of a space, and into that position, without waking me. I was about 5'5" at the time, and not very light. I hardly ever think about that place or that little door anymore, but when it comes to mind, it's my textbook example of a haunted house. You know what I was thinking about this? The TNG episode Sub Rosa, which is widely regarded as the worst episode. I don't think so. I think it's a weird episode, but I love it. And yeah, it's even produced pretty well. And it has the storm that pops in out of nowhere, which is induced by this entity, not a spirit, but you could just call it a ghost. And it has this green lightning effect, which I think is so atmospheric and just suits the mood so well. So I was just thinking about this. Who knows, maybe there's a Sub Rosa episode going on of a reality TV. Case file number 3070, written by Plenilunio, 30, 5 minutes after normal. Returning home, after I got off the bus, I called my mom to let her know I was about to arrive. I could hear my little brothers and my father watching football in the background, and she was making dinner. Around me, some people at the bar, people walking around the street, nothing out of the ordinary really. Then 5 minutes later, I arrived home and loudly said, "Hello everyone," as always. Nobody answered. I thought, okay, maybe they didn't hear me, so I went to look for my family. The TV was turned on, someone was watching football, but the living room was empty. The kitchen was empty, but the lights were on. The bathroom had the lights on too, but also empty. I looked everywhere, every single room. I started getting weirded out, but I don't know, maybe they went to my grandma's on the other building's floor? I don't know. I swear the house was empty except for me and my pets. The cats were chilling though, but when I checked my balcony, this got even weirder. The street was empty. I could only hear the crickets and animals, no cars, no people. The bar was open, but I couldn't see people on the terrace, even though I'd had a couple of families when I walked past them. Scary. I went to my room because I still had my backpack on and I wanted to leave it, but honestly I was starting to get unsettled. And then suddenly my mom appeared on my door, looking surprised. The conversation was something like this. Her: "You already here? I didn't listen to the door." Me: "Where were you all? Nobody was here." "What do you mean? We didn't leave?" "I said hi and nobody was at home." Weird. Maybe we didn't hear you." We looked at each other, super confused, but she changed the topic and I didn't say anything else. And yes, my father and brothers were watching football in the living room, sunk in the sofa like they never left, and the cars and people returned. Everything was normal. No, I didn't listen to the door before she came into my room. My room is right next to the house entrance. I would have listened to it. I have no explanation for this, but it felt genuinely scary for a minute there. The silence, man. I think this is my favorite story of today's batch. It's going back to a few events where maybe a handful of stories where people wake up or they just walk into an area and suddenly no one exists. They're in a dead world. Now you have the cats, they could just be placeholders, probably not real in the sense of having a soul. I think pets do, but sometimes there could be placeholders. So you're just in this temporary limbo between universes. It's a base area because you're still consciously aware. Maybe you are being transferred for some reason, like in MMO servers where for some reason or another you have to be transferred, moved to a different server. Maybe there was a corruption in the original server and everyone there had to be moved, and they all have to be placed into temporary pockets to make the transition safer because they can't put you under or something. Maybe it just happens too suddenly. So that's in the event that it happens in emergency situations, you're reported to a area that is safe but has no one else in it or very few. And then you're transitioned to the other universe where you're going to spend your time now. Case file number 3071, written by PeachPie888. The Caller Incident. The morning of when my house got broken into, I was getting ready for work and looking over some of my very expensive handbags that I hadn't tidied away. I was running late and thought, I really shouldn't leave them out in full view in case someone breaks in, but I was so late I just had to go. That afternoon, my house was broken into, and the handbags left out were naturally gone. The ones tidied away in their dust bags on high shelves were still there. Think about this a lot. More recently, I went to a coffee shop and for the first time ever decided to comply with the rules and leave my dog tied up outside. I normally take her in and they don't mind, but I thought it's a good training opportunity as it's a very safe area and other dogs are tied up too. The second I stepped into the coffee shop, I had a bad feeling that I couldn't shake while I was waiting in line. I can't explain it. It felt like my brain was screaming at me to go check on my dog. I get to the counter and the cashier asks me where my dog is because he likes her. I said she's outside because I felt bad not following the rules. At which point he tells me it's really no problem because she's so small, and that's when my anxiety fully kicked in, and I asked him if in that case I can go get her while he makes my coffee, which was to go anyway. I was 1 minute from being done with getting coffee, but I knew I had to go get her. When I got outside, a strange lady was petting my dog and fumbling with her collar. She looked startled when I interrupted her. She tried to play it off like she was just petting my dog, but when I asked her if she thinks it's appropriate to touch strange dogs, she mumbled something about, what if she's been abandoned? Yes, abandoned in a dog-friendly park next to 3 other tied-up dogs outside a coffee shop? Please. I had such a bad feeling about this woman. I immediately took my dog and went to get my coffee. Never again. I had this exact same thing happen to me, but not with the dog, with a bike, an e-bike. Because e-bikes are pretty expensive, I would ride them to the grocery store down in Florida when I was there, and just, lock it up, but still it's only a bike lock, you can easily angle grind that off. And I just went to do my shopping, but I had this sense that something was happening to the bike. So I just left my shopping cart half, full, not done yet, went outside and saw, someone was fiddling with the lock. They didn't break it yet or anything, but they were scoping it, and I don't remember. I think I just went home, or maybe no, I tried to bring it inside the store. So one thing that sucks with e-bikes is people just try to steal stuff. You have to live in a very, safe area with no theft. You need a high trust society for those to be functional, where you don't even really need a lock at all, which is hard to find, but there's some places in the US you can do that. But side tangent. I just think it's interesting that we have these gut instincts that are not always right, but often are. Listen to them. Time for the jokes of the day. Yesterday, a cop knocked on my door. They said they were looking for a man with just one eye. I told them it would be more effective to use both eyes. Asked what the Wi-Fi password was at a funeral. They said, have some respect for the dead. It was the wrong password. My wife found out I was cheating on her after she found all the letters I was hiding. She got mad and said she's never playing Scrabble with me again. I found out my girlfriend is really a ghost. I had my suspicions the moment she walked through the door. I had a flatmate who was a dyslexic, agnostic, insomniac. He would stay up all night wondering if there really was a dog. Alright, video up here. YouTube thinks you'll like it. Check it out. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe. I'll see you next time.